Hello and welcome to Call of Discovery, the podcast where we invite you on a journey into the Crucible for a fortnightly celebration of all things Keyforge, its community, and the excitement of our dedication to the Martian nation. I'm your co-host, Zach Armstrong, and I am here, as always, with the man in green. It's Ed Pocock. How are you, Ed?
I happen to be wearing green today. If you are referring to my presence as part of the Martian Empire, I regret to inform you, you are mistaken.
Ah, ah, ah. I gotta get my Red Planet ray gun. We have to solve this now, Pocock.
I love it. I love it.
And we are joined again by Simon Finchley, who came on 2 weeks ago to talk about science fantasy, the genre in which Keyforge abides. And he is back as we bring most of our guests back to talk about a deck that is special, unique to them, something they want to talk about. And it's Keyforge. So it's never a deck we've talked about before. Simon, thank you so much for coming back on to Call of Discovery.
My immense pleasure to be back.
Well, it is our pleasure. It is our pleasure to have you. So, without further ado, Simon, what is the name of the deck you have brought for us today, and how did you come across it?
Today we're going to be talking about Eisen, Averinstin's Shocking Prophet.
I'm really glad you pronounced that because I wouldn't have had a clue.
Well, I mean, that's also the great thing about Keyforge names, right? If it's your deck, right, you get to decide how it's pronounced, right?
This is true.
No one can tell you wrong. Yeah. So this is a Mass Mutation deck, and this is actually the very first Mass Mutation deck I ever opened. So I went to one of my local shops, Black and Red, over in Westminster. Shout out. Super cool place. If you love games and you're in the Denver area, go check out Black and Red because it is so cool. They just have like stacks and stacks of stuff like on the floor, and then they have books and they have records. Anyway, it's a cool place. So I went to Black and Red to get my Mass Mutation decks, and I was standing there and I was like, I really, really hope I get one of the gigantic creatures. That would be really, really cool. And it would be really cool if I got that giant robot, because that would be really, I just think that's really, really cool. And I opened the first one, and what is the first thing I see? Ultra Gravitron. So it was like the Keyforge architects granted my wish, and they gave me the thing that I wanted. So that was.
They are benevolent.
They are. Sometimes you get exactly what you want, and sometimes you get 4 carpet fluxums. That's not what you want.
Amazing.
But yes, so I was very excited to get the thing that I was chasing in Mass Mutation immediately. It saved me a lot of money. But as I started playing with it, I learned that this deck was so much fun to play. I think I have over 100 games logged with this deck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So it is a Logos Saurian Untamed deck. I will describe the Archon card for you. It is green. It looks like a piece of machinery with tentacles and nodules. So there you go.
A piece of machinery with tentacles and nodules. That tracks. That tracks.
Yeah. So some highlights. So just a quick overview of some of the things that are exciting about this deck. So like we said, it's got an Ultra Gravitron in Logos, which is the gigantic 2-part robot creature. It has Redacted, which basically says if you can call Logos 4 times, you get a free key. In the Saurian suite of the 12 cards, 10 of them are creatures. So it's got a massive Saurian board. It's got Scylla and Charybdis, which are really fun paired and powerful creatures. And then in the Untamed, you've got 2 Dark Fairies, which are fun, 2 Lost in the Woods to send things back that you don't want to see on your opponent's board, and then 2 Pismires, which if you can get them both out and you're not playing against another mutant deck, which in the diverse meta you often aren't, your opponent's keys are costing +4 for a total of 10. So those are the highlights of the things that make this deck super fun.
Awesome.
Man,
And to bring our last episode into it straight away,
Mm-hmm.
what really grabbed you about this deck? Was it the style of it? Was it the story? Was it the art? Could you see a kind of cohesive story between the way that the cards interacted? Was it the flavor or was it the gameplay?
No, this was definitely like a gameplay sort of situation. Although now you make me want to come up with a story of this particular Archon and why he's got a giant robot and two little beetles and a whole bunch of dinos working for him. And what is it? He's a prophet, right? So he's predicting the future, but it's shocking. So it's maybe that's what the "it's coming" is about. He's saying it's coming. It's going to be a giant robot. Here it is, right?
Maybe the shocking prophet's seen what's redacted.
Oh,
I think this shocking prophet perhaps walked around the cities in the Crucible just yelling the word hiatus, hiatus, and nobody believed him.
Right. And I guess particularly in Averinstin. So I don't know if I've done it with this one, but something that I like to do sometimes with the decks is if they've got a place name to go and search for other decks that are from that place.
Of course, yes.
Let's see. Let me just.
Oh yes, that led me to the Rani and the Raja of Bombagam. So I'm
Right.
always down for somebody trying to complete a royal cadre or a family
So
or
let's
or
see
a
what
line.
else is going on in Averinstin. We've got the heavily everyday Primus. We've got a pilot. We've got an executioner, a count, a pharaoh, and a tracker.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
Right.
I saw on the Keyforge Facebook group once somebody was trying to build a family line out of the names because it would be blank spawn of blank. And it was Zach spawn of Tom or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you would look for like the next one in the line, like so and so spawn of Zach, and actually get them linked. And I think this person had 3 to 5 in a line already, which was pretty impressive.
That's fun.
Pretty impressive.
See, like that's the kind of stuff that you just can't get in another game. Right?
It's so true.
And it's all generated. It's like nobody's like built this or created it. Right? It's just happening. That's just fun.
Yeah. And Simon, I was looking at this deck list while you were talking about it. Was so fun because you said, here's all the exciting parts. And I'm like, you hit only like half of the exciting parts. There's 10 Saurian creatures with Saurian Egg, which has Omni, discard the 2 cards of your deck. If you discard any Saurian creatures this way, put them into play ready with 3+1 power counters. So like you can get twins, right?
No, you're absolutely right, Zach. This is like, in terms of like odds for Saurian Egg going off, this is like ideal scenario, right? Like there are 9 other Saurians, and it does go off, with relative accuracy. And I have gotten the twins at least once.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so no, that's an exciting thing. That was just the highlights. Obviously we have other things to talk about here. One of which, because this is a Mass Mutation deck, right? It has enhancements. Mm-hmm. So the Ultra Gravitron is enhanced. So when I play Ultra Gravitron, I get to draw a card too. And just in terms of how unique that is, like how many other people have an enhanced Ultra Gravitron, I don't know, but I've got one.
Right. Oh, it's got to be relatively rare.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a bug on the Crucible Online that was only affecting enhanced gigantic creatures. And so I was making some, bug reports for that, but it was they couldn't quite figure out. It was like, well, why isn't this working? It was something where the armor wasn't showing up, and it's like, well, it's showing up sometimes and other times, and they figured it out because it had to do with enhanced creatures, enhanced gigantic creatures.
Wow!
So it was kind of a niche bug situation. So that was kind of neat. But in terms of the other enhancements that are cool, so it has 2 copies of Citizen Shrix, and each of them have an amber pip on them.
Oh wow!
So you're playing Citizen Strix, you get an amber, and then you steal an amber, and then you exalt it, and that's true for both. So I don't know. That just boggles the mind. They both have the same enhancement. That's wild. And then the other one that is cool. So there's 2 dark fairies, and then one is enhanced, and the other one isn't. So you can kind of track which one is which. So one of them's got a damage and a draw, and the other one is just blank. And that's just kind of cool to be like, oh, this is my unique Dark Fairy, and this is the other one. This is the basic one. Also being a really great card. Skirmish fight game too.
Yeah, certainly.
So generally how this deck plays is you've got, you're building up this massive Saurian board, right? You're protecting the amber that you're exalting with Ludo, or using Dark Centurion to ward the exalted creatures. So that's great. Scylla and Charybdis are making it so your opponent doesn't want to reap or fight. Then you're getting your untamed creatures out, so making their keys cost higher with the Pismires, sending back anything that you don't want to see with the Lost in the Woods. And there's some great targets for that, like Gloriana's Attendant, right? It's just like a 0/1 creature. It's a great target for Lost in the Woods because it, just sends it back. You don't really lose anything. And then in the meantime, you're trying to put together your Ultra Gravitron and get that out so you can draw 5 cards into your archives and then pull that into your hand. If you don't already have the Saurian board, then you're playing, you might be playing 6 or 7 Saurian cards from that massive draw that you've just had. So it's just fun. It's just a blast to play.
Awesome. It looks like a blast to play as well. And it's just got flavor too. It has got flavor, whether it's because of the flavor you called it or not. And at what point did you realize this was a deck you really loved? Was it during gameplay or was it earlier than that?
I think there was just a period after Mass Mutation came out where anytime I sat down to play Keyforge, I was like, what do I want to play? I want to play that one again. I want to play that one. Like I just got into this groove with it where it was just, that was the deck I was playing. And I think it was just like a thing over time. And then I was looking at, cause I track my wins on a little spreadsheet or whatever, just to kind of see. And then at one point I noticed it was above 100. And I was like, wow, it didn't feel like I had been playing it that much, but I guess I had. So there's just something about it that I just kept coming back to. And I think it was getting that Ultra Gravitron on the table. That's just something that's just fun to do. I think I was hearing someone talk about, I don't know if it was another Keyforge podcast or something, but having these sub goals that aren't winning, right? You're trying to win the game, but then you have these other little things that you're trying to do, getting out a particular combo or, getting a certain creature to go off, and definitely getting those gigantic creatures on the board is something that's really fun, especially this one, because it gives you such an advantage or such a card advantage. It doesn't even have to stick on the board. It could get destroyed immediately the next turn, but you've still got those 5 cards in your archives. And sometimes even you can use the Lost in the Woods to send the Ultra Gravitron back into the deck and then trigger it again. Just drawing massive amounts of cards.
Oh yeah, true. Especially
the Khalifi Dragon effect, although actually powerful.
Yes. So the one thing I will say, so the Redacted is a good card. In this deck, I am often not calling Logos enough for it to go off.
Really?
Yeah, because mostly I'm calling Saurian and Untamed because that's where I'm getting all of the value. The rest of the Logos suite is just kind of okay. Standardized testing is tricky because so many of the creatures are too small, like Dark Fairy, or they're too big, like the Ultra Gravitron and the dinosaurs, right? So standardized testing is in this deck is mostly a discard. There's sometimes, right, where you're in the situation where it goes off, but Titan Engineer is just okay. Munchling is fine. Even Ivan, they're all just sort of like, okay. But I'm getting more value out of the big Saurian board or the Untamed board. But what it does do is it's sort of a false target for the opponent, right? I get Redacted on the board and they are going out of their way to try to get rid of it, when in fact I don't really, I'm not planning it. It's not part of my game plan for that to go off. It would be better if there was some sort of other artifact that it was protecting, right? That I get down the redacted and they use their artifact control on that. But unfortunately, that is the only artifact in the deck. So it's sort of like well, I mean, it does go off sometimes. Sometimes I do get that free key, but it's pretty rare.
Sure. Sure. It would take the person, your opponent would have to be quite good at reading deck lists to then think, they probably won't be calling Logos a whole lot, so maybe I don't have to spend extra effort on redacted. I think, most times people will perhaps go out of their way for a turn to take out redacted if they can.
Yeah. I mean, if you see redacted on a deck list, you sort of assume, right, that that's part of the plan.
Right. Right.
But in this case, it's not really. It's sort of a false alarm.
Right. Right.
Yeah, indeed. And is there any card you really miss from this? Is there any card you wish I just want this to be part of this set and it's not?
Autoencoder. Maybe the best card in Mass Mutation. I mean, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no to swapping out a Titan Engineer for an autoencoder. Right, that would just play into the game plan. Right, you'd be able to archive more, and then that would be the card that the redacted was protecting. Right, they use the resources to get rid of the redacted, leaving the autoencoder to keep doing its work. But we don't get to deck build, so that's just how it goes.
That's true. So with your large Saurian board, with the you've got several big creatures, effectual creatures, and I just see the only really board control is having those big creatures, and then maybe the Lost in the Woods. Does this deck ever really get so far behind on board that you feel like you're really fighting uphill, or does it really hold its own when somebody is just throwing a whole lot of creatures onto the board across from you?
It really just holds, and often I'm not worried about their board, especially if I've got Scylla and Charybdis on the board, and I've been able to ward them, which you can do by moving your Amber around and then warding it with the Dark Centurion. It doesn't matter how big their board is if they are losing Amber when they fight and they're taking damage when they reap. So I just don't worry about it. If it gets really sticky, you've got the standardized testing if you really need it. The Dark Fairies can come in and do damage and not take damage back. It just sticks. It just holds.
Which is amazing.
So another card that I can call out, and these were cards that I loved in Mass Mutation, the variant mutants, right, where they had so I've got a Xenosaurus, and it's also enhanced. So you think about unique cards, right? What's the odds that I would get those combinations and then get an enhancement on it? So it's got a damage pip, and then it's got the play. You can exalt to deal 3 damage, so you get a little bit of extra bonus with that. So if there's something that's got a ward, you can use the damage pip to take off the ward, and then you can exalt to do a 3, or you can take out a 4 power creature. So that's kind of a fun little unique thing too.
Yeah. And with since this is Mass Mutation, right? There's just so many moving parts. Was there a play you've made with this deck, even if it only happened once? Was there a play you made with this deck where it was kind of like from the previous episode you talked about when you put Brainstem Antenna on Snudge and went, wait, I can just keep doing this until I hit the rule of 6. Did you have you had any similar kind of aha moments with a really niche combo with this deck that you've hit?
I think I've already mentioned it. It was using Lost in the Woods to send Ultra Gravitron back into my deck so that I could trigger the play effect again. My deck was small, so I knew I had a pretty good chance of drawing it again. And when I was playing Lost in the Woods, and I was like, okay, what am I going to send back? And I was like, oh, it's got a play effect, right? I'm not going back into Logos, so I'll just send it back into my deck and see if I can draw it again. I don't remember if I did or not. I probably didn't. But it was just one of those things, Keyforge exists
Sure.
in the space of possibilities, right? It's like, well, I could do that.
Playing to your outs in
Mhm.
Keyforge, right? Basically, the idea of setting yourself up to take maximum advantage if you do hit what you need to hit with the just the randomness and
Mhm.
draw order in Keyforge. It has such a unique feel to it. Like you really can do a bit of a Hail Mary play
Mhm.
and really just have the deck go off sometimes, like perhaps doing Ultra Gravitron 2 or 3 times inside of a game by just Lost in the Woodsing it
Mhm.
a few times, which is
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A
But
lot of fun.
other than that, it's mostly like using Consul Primus to move Amber onto a creature, and then using Dark Centurion to then remove that Amber and then ward the creature. So I can kind of like, if
Mm,
I've got those two out, I can ward any creature that I want,
yeah.
um, which feels really powerful and really fun. And you get to use so many different levers, right? It's like you've got this big machine, and okay, I'll pull this one and this one and this one. Um,
Yeah. And something that, as you're talking about these cards, Simon, Consul Primus and Dark Centurion, something really came to me about the flavor of Keyforge, right? Like we've talked about with it being science fantasy, is
mhm.
that there's other dueling games, not just Magic, right, but other dueling games where your creatures are always attacking, whether they're like an old wizened professor or something else, right? Like your creatures are always attacking. But I'm just looking at Consul Primus and I'm like, oh, Consul Primus can fight. But really, Consul Primus is there to not fight. Consul Primus is there to reap, right? And then you look at somebody who's designed for like battle, Dark Centurion. And then you look at Ludo. Ludo could fight, but Ludo is quite literally supporting the rest of the battle line. It's yeah, yeah, just that the creatures exist on more axes than just like how do they fight, right?
Right.
Even within the mechanics of the game,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah. How
which
are they?
I've only
How are we working together rather than how are we, dominating each other?
yeah, yeah, and they really do work together. Still towards a goal to beat another team, but even in the
Mhm.
fiction, it's more of a sporting event than a war, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, wow, prophetic indeed, prophetic indeed.
Simon, any matchups this deck struggles with?
um, this deck has no artifact control, so
Oh.
which is a big problem. Yeah. So anything that's relying on artifacts, and there are a great many of them, if that comes down, there's literally nothing I can do other than play around it. Um, so that's a big missing point in this deck for sure.
Yeah, strikes me as so. But yeah, I mean, I suppose that depends on the decks you're playing. I was going to say, does this play quite quickly? But yeah, if you really want to get that redacted to work, it's it's going to take a little while, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's really it. In order to do that, you have to take a lot of suboptimal moves. You're getting into
Mm.
logos and not getting able to do as much as you could in the other houses. So, but so it's really that you have to kind of think about, is this going to be part of my game plan or not?
Hmm.
If it gets out early, like I recently had a game where I had it first turn, and I was like, great, I think this is something I can do by the end. I think I can call logos 4 times this game. But if it comes out middle of the game, late game, I mean, it's not going off. That's not
Sure.
happening.
Mm.
Yeah, sure.
Something
And
else as I'm looking through the deck that I'm
yeah.
remembering is it's got a resurgence in Untamed, which lets you return a creature from your discard pile, and if it's a mutant, you get to return it again, another creature. And there are so many great mutants. You can bring back the Pismires, you can bring back the Dark Fairies, you can bring back the Citizen Shrixes because those are mutants. Just the ability to bring back 2 creatures is something that's really powerful. Because you've got all these targets, right? And your opponent takes them out, and then you just bring them back, right? That's something else that's super helpful and fun with this deck.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, Resurgence is so good, and it's
So
especially
good.
good in this deck, like you mentioned, with all of those enhancements. So let's say there was a vault tour in your area, Simon, and FFG came to you, and it's all let's presume it's all safe. Everybody's vaccinated. COVID's been shoved into history by modern medicine. And FFG says, Simon, we just can't decide what format or what variant we want this vault tour to be. So if you're going to take S. Eisen, Averinstin's Shocking Prophet, what to this vault tour, what variant, what format would you want this vault tour to be?
That's a great question. It sort of depends. Like it depends how I'm feeling. Like I would take this to just like a straight up Archon if I was in the mood just to have fun. Like if I wasn't worried about like playing the most top tier decks and I just wanted to play and have fun. Otherwise, I would probably have to say adaptive, just because I'm so familiar with this deck that I'm sure. I mean, it's not like some of the adaptive decks that you see that are like really tricky and really particular, but I'm just so familiar with it that would give me an edge in a adaptive matchup for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
I mean, a hypothetical situation, of course, but hopefully we will hear something from FFG on events once the game on hiatuses, and I'm sure it will. But in the meantime, where's the next journey for this deck, Simon? Are you going to be taking it to any local events? Are you going to be playing it online, or is it going to be sitting pretty and awaiting the return, the Keyforge revival that is yet to be?
Well, this deck obviously has a special place. It's definitely one of my, if not my favorite deck, in the top 3. So it's not going anywhere. But unfortunately, I just got a big box of discounted Worlds Collide stuff. So
unfortunately,
unfortunately for this deck, fortunate for me, I'm going to be, and I've started playing through those to try to see if there's any other new favorites in there. So this deck is going to take a little break while I do some auditions, do some tryouts with these other decks. But I don't imagine anything beating out this deck because it's so special. But you never know.
You never know. And very envious of the discounted Worlds Collide product across the pond. I'm looking with binoculars and eyeing them up with glee. But that was weirder than it sounded in my head.
No worries at all.
But Simon, it has been absolutely fantastic to have you on the podcast, and any listeners who haven't heard our previous episode on Keyforge and Science Fantasy, please do listen in and go and check out an author. You can check out his book via the link we've got below. So please do that. Support a fellow member of the community. And great to meet you, Simon. Great to speak to someone just as passionate about the game as we are. Absolutely. Where can people find you?
Well, you can go to my website, simonfinchley.com. That's Finchley. And that you can find more information about my science fantasy book. But I also hang out in the Discords and I'm on Reddit. So
awesome. Thank you very much. Dear listener, if you are new to Keyforge, do check out the new player's guide on Archon Arcana. This is the Keyforge wiki link below, and you can get started there on your own unique journey into this wonderful game. If you're looking to support us monetarily, please do visit our Patreon, also linked below, where you can sign up to support us monthly and enjoy rewards such as our exclusive Discord, where we get many topics and many of the questions you've heard today on the show. Let us also know what you'd like to see more of or less of in future shows by interacting with us across social media or emailing us at podcast@callofdiscovery.com. I should add that we also have our own Patreon-specific podcast, Beyond Discovery, which has 2 episodes currently, but a third will be on its way at some time soon, where we talk about the things that we just don't really get round to on the show. But most importantly, do you think a friend would enjoy this podcast? Well, why haven't you helped them to discover it? Have you answered the call of discovery?